I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
You're listening to the Heroed Out podcast. To find out how to hear the latest episode or to connect with us, please visit heroedout.com. Consumer discretion is advised.
Every once in a while, the clap goes away.
I don't think so.
Wishful thinking.
All right, and we're back with the Hear It Out podcast. Today's episode, we're going to be talking about toxicity within the department or whatever your job is. But first, I'll kick it over to Nick so we can give a shout out to our sponsor for this episode.
Yeah, before we jump into that, I do want to say thank you guys to Blue Line Beer Company out of Long Island, New York. Hopefully that shows up decent on that camera. If not, I'll blame Kyle. He's our tech guy. They got us some beer here today. They also sent us some T-shirts. A couple cops from up there in New York City, brewing their own beer, have their own little restaurant up there doing their thing. So thank you guys very much for your support on the show. We really appreciate it. If you guys get the opportunity, reach out to them, say hello, or even buy some beer from them. Maybe we'll send you some swag too. But getting started, Kyle and I want to talk about toxicity, just toxic environments in general, whether it's internal, whether it's external, whether it's individuals you work with, you work for. So we want to kind of bring this up because a lot of people have trouble understanding how to navigate these types of situations. They get stuck in that feeling that they have to bend to the will of the environment because that's just the way the ship rows. So understanding how to work through these problems, I think, is very important. So I think we're going to go ahead and start with that today. And I think one thing I'd like to start with is just keeping a positive mindset, and just always knowing that you've got to keep that positive mindset, because if you let any negativity in, negativity is going to breed negativity. And just like the rumor mill, negativity will spread significantly faster than any positive information will.
Yeah, it's like cancer, whether it's internal, external. We're going to hit on both of those, the sides of toxicity today. There is internal toxicity where you can't say no at work, right? Or you can't say no to going to work.
Yeah.
I was that person for sure.
Yeah. That's the struggle that you have internally. That's not the job. It's just the way that job's made you feel, where you're like, I can't miss today. Like if I don't go, something will happen. Something bad will happen,
Right.
in that constant need where it feels like they're dependent upon you can become toxic, and it can spread over into your personal life, And I think that's why having that work-life balance, the home life separation, having that small drive, having friends that are outside of this job is very important, because if you don't, I think you'll find that I just feel like at least for me, there was a lot of addiction for the work. And I don't mean as far as like substance abuse, but I mean, just like, it wasn't a real job to me. Like it wasn't, it was like,
You got to go play.
Yeah, I got to play cops and robbers. It's not like real work, man. Like I've had to do real work, and real work sucks. So I think that becomes addicting too. Plus, it's a lot of fun. Like you really get to do a lot of cool shit that gets glorified on TV, that gets glorified in different settings where you're like, man, that's what wrote me into doing this. But
or unglorified now, if you look at stuff.
Yeah, no, depending on what you're looking at now. This is very true. But to me, I think having that healthy work-life balance is very, very important.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring up a quick little note here from the Harvard Business Review. Everybody's heard about the Great Resignation now, and they've actually done a study. They found in 2021, the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics found that over 47 million Americans voluntarily quit their job that year.
So like 20% of the nation.
Right, 20% of the workforce, 18%.
Well, yeah, 20%, I guess, not all are working age, but...
Right, and that's just quitting, going to find something different or whatever. And I think, anecdotally, from what I've heard and what I've experienced, that probably a good portion of that is from toxicity, whether internally at whatever job you work at, or the negative backlash.
Well, that people are putting more value on themselves. Yeah. I think people are putting more value on themselves as a commodity and a product. And I think that this has given that perspective to not just the employers, but the employee, the value they bring. So there's been a lot of change that you see have implemented, people that have tried to, work from home or hybrid type of things. And I was actually reading a study maybe a month ago now. Some of the larger corporations, I think in London, so forgive me if I'm off on this, I don't have it in front of me. They're trying to see if going to a 32-hour work week can still maintain productivity. So can we still pay these people for 40 hours and still get capacity of work done in 32? Because there is a lot of fuck off time at work. There's going to be, they're like, well, if we give these people that healthier work-life balance, can we still get the same product out of them? And I think that's what you're seeing. A lot of people putting that extra value on themselves, even financially. And they know that I'm not an easy spot to fill. I mean, as any industry is looking at currently with job shortages, it's hard to find people to it's hard to find an ass for a seat, for lack of a better term.
Good help's hard to find for sure.
It is. Yeah. I mean, it doesn't have to be good, just anybody to apply,
Yeah, I don't know what the answer to be for any public service or things like that, because I mean, nurses already work 32 hours, but or 36 or whatever the case may be, but there's a lot more of them, so you're going to have to hire a lot more people in order to sustain that, and firefighter, cop, teacher.
But even touching on the nurse thing, I think you also have to consider too, like with travel pools. I know there's a lot of negativity with individuals that work for an organization because they're like, hey, I'm making $35 an hour. I've been dedicated to this place for 15 years. And then a travel assignment comes up. You're going to pay them $90 an hour.
Right.
Like if you want to keep people,
place, right?
Yeah, you got to invest. So it creates that toxic work environment. It's the us versus them mentality where they get that discontent and that unhappiness with their job. And they have some resentment they hold towards the employer. But I think that's where it comes back to investing in your people, because they are the commodity in most industries, unless you're doing like an FBA fulfillment by Amazon where you just buy not the point. People are a commodity, and I think they're starting to put more value on themselves and understand. But also too, if you look at it, man, what was the median home price in the 90s? Probably 85,000, 90,000.
Right.
Now you're looking at almost 300,000.
Yeah, I mean the percentage points are way different too, because back then it was 13 to 18% loans. I mean, now you're looking at 4 or 5.
Yeah, but even still, the cost of goods has grown up so much that it has negatively impacted people. Pay has not kept up with it. So I think that's why you're finding so many people resigning, is because they're not in that environment. But also to get back on the toxic environment portion, a lot of it could be people. Like they just don't like the people. And I think one thing that we've all been able to experience, I mean, even everybody out there listening today, you've had people that you didn't like that you had to work for. Now there's people that I just didn't like, but I still work for them. There's people that I absolutely disagreed with. Mm-hmm. There's a difference. There's a marked difference for me. And having somebody that I just didn't like, okay, whatever, that's just part of life.
Right.
Having that disagreement, I think is totally separate. And that's when you have to evaluate where that person's role is in your job and how you can try to make the best of it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, just to touch on your travel pool nursing thing example, don't get caught in that rabbit hole, man. Because like, think about it, like they might be traveling to South Dakota or whatever, and that's all they're getting cash. They're not, or all their benefits.
Yeah, they're independent contractors.
Right. Yeah. So all their money is actually their hourly wages taken up for their medical, for their travel, for everything else. So like, I wouldn't get stuck in that. Now, if you're riding a fire truck or police car and you're 10 years in and somebody else is making the exact same as you, yeah, that's a real concern. No,
it is. And that's, that's what we talked with Carl about when he's here, that big bald headed dummy. Carl saying, he's been a lieutenant, for, God, I don't know, 15, 16, 17 years. And a guy just gets promoted and he makes like 20 cents less an hour.
Right.
How do you think that's going to create a positive work environment? It's going to become negative. You're going to have some toxicity that's going to come out as a result of that.
Yeah. I mean, with that, you just kind of got to roll with the punches, so to speak. It's nothing really you can control. So the only things you can control is how you react to them. Yeah,
this is true. I think, though, just not everybody here is a ground floor individual. There are people in the position to make positive change. Sure. It's all about creating the proper culture. And the culture is related to what you have control over, what's in your span of control. So the agency we work for was 450 deputies, but you can create that positive culture on your shift. You can create that positive culture in your unit. You can create that positive culture on your floor, in your classroom. You can do that because you have that control. So having the ability to understand that. But I think where the biggest problem is there's too many people who think it's like an us versus them. And a lot of administrations push that. I don't want to say push that intentionally, but they don't understand how they're being perceived. Or maybe they are doing it intentionally.
Yeah, I've noticed that a lot too, especially with the, like with a union. If they have a union for whatever reason, it burns the hair of the ass of the admin. I don't know why.
Dude, it fucking drives me up the wall. So the agency where we work for, I said, it never made sense to me. How come the union president's office wasn't on the administrative floor, like sheriff, chief, union guy, other administrators? So when there's a policy coming down, when there's a new directive, when there's a new direction, you have that ability to say, this is the reason we're doing this, and this is all the information. So as the administration, you're getting the right message across. And as the union, you understanding what the impact is going to be and be able to explain it to your guys. Because for fucking 17 years, I was force-fed decisions, and I was just like, you're just like a mushroom, man. Feed you shit, keep you in the dark. Nobody told you anything. Nobody explained it. And eventually you'd get to the right individual, and they're like, well, this is why. I'm like, oh, all right, well, that makes sense.
Yeah, well, we talked about this before. That's kind of the informal leaders in your department.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or your agency or wherever you work,
Absolutely. I just think having that communication is very important to get away from that us versus them. I don't think that it's always a directed response, but people, when they're unhappy and they're in this toxic environment, any sort of negativity will be, they'll compound any other problems they have. It'll make it seem so much worse. So that's why it's important administratively, in my opinion, at least, to understand the culture that is in your agency and not just, getting lip service from your fucking, senior staff.
Yeah, I mean, just think about it, put yourself in those shoes, going to a call or going into a classroom and you just got bad news and now your emotions are up or you feel wronged or the parity isn't there or whatever. You're going to act a little different.
Oh, for sure.
With that interaction or that class or that patient or whoever.
Right. And to me, it's that those are, it goes back to our, understanding like mental health. It's not always a singular incident. It can be a compound of multiple things, which creates that toxicity, which creates that unhappiness, which creates that culture of negativity that people are trying to break. Well, I think whenever you insult people by assuming what their problem is instead of actually talking to them, I think that's one of the bigger issues. But I think another thing too is you get in these. I've seen it in every industry, and I'm sure there is everywhere. There's cliques or groups or like little like you're not part of this crew type of thing, like high school drama, dude. Oh, yeah. Dude, I'm fucking 30. How am I, 36? Yeah, I'm 36, man. I don't got fucking time for that shit.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure you saw it in the fire department, like, if you're not hazmat or you're not this or that, firewalkers, whatever. Same thing in police, if SWAT or you're not. Like, that's a movie sign,
right?
A movie saying, but it's true. I mean, not to the sense that I'd never experienced it to the sense it was like toxic, but it just, it almost seemed like a bullying thing.
Well, no, does it, my question is,
it's not productive.
Does it breed productivity? Does it help the cause? No, it doesn't. I understand, like, hey, if you're not on the motor unit, you don't come out to fucking motor training and ride a motorcycle. I get it.
Right.
But at the same time, we all work together. We are all on the same crew. And I don't know about you, but if I was ever pinned down by gunfire, I don't care if it was a fucking podunk PD from the middle of nowhere or one of my guys that I trusted and loved my life, or just some random guy, a bystander with a gun putting rounds down, right? Anything would have been good. But we forget that. I think people get too far and it breeds that toxicity, almost like a holier than thou, And I think that's one thing that cliques will do is it creates a divisiveness. So not only do you have your administrative doing the us versus them, internally we're doing it to ourselves, like at our own level, which is probably even worse because we know we shouldn't be doing it.
Yeah, I mean, I've said it 1,000 times. I'll say it 1,000 more times. The public service industry is a dog-eat-dog industry. It's that subculture that's been bred into it, and a lot of that I think has to come with people gossiping. We talked with Sheriff Ivy, and he was saying like the gossip stuff is a morale killer. Like,
I'm sure.
I'm sure when he has a promotion thing, like you not gossip about who's getting it because I'm gonna pick somebody.
Yeah.
It doesn't go 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks and then
linger.
Right. And put the whole department at unease.
Yeah.
But those rumors, it doesn't even have to be a negative rumor, any rumor.
No. And I think understanding that there's also going to be bad apples. There's going to be people that we just don't get along with, or people that are just not good for our industry.
They just don't belong there.
They just don't belong there. And there are people that I've met that were cops or hired as cops, but they were not cops. Like they just couldn't get it. They were good people. But as far as the bad apples go, for me, it was always very easy to stay out of the rumors and gossip. It was very easy to know where my boundaries were. Because by nature, I'm a very solitudinal person. Like I'm okay with me. I don't need anybody's approval. I don't need to be friends with anybody. Like I could have no friends and be okay. But I think not trying to appease everyone and understand that some people are just negative and not letting that individual affect you is important, because that person is never going to be happy.
No, for sure. One of the things that I think is pretty intriguing, actually, that I've noticed in law enforcement is you by the very definition of the job itself, you're there to investigate. So people try to fill the gaps of what they don't know and what they think they should know, and that comes internally too. It's a hard group to get along with, and avoid the gossip stuff. But it's super important, super important.
No, and I think also you could feed into gossip by perpetuating it, and you could be negatively impacting somebody else that wouldn't have been. Like you could be gossiping about two individuals, and that can negatively impact their personal life because now this rumor or whatnot has spread outside of that little gossip circle. So there's that. And then you got to think that person now has to go home and explain that, this is what's going on. This is why I got transferred, or this is why, no, I'm not dating this person on shit. Like they're all like, they almost have to justify themselves, where you could have been like, I'm not fucking getting in the middle of this shit, dude. I'm here to fucking collect a paycheck. I'm here to do my fucking job, and that's it.
Right. I actually have seen this personally and seen people create fake rumors to stir somebody else up. And
I got a story for you.
That's perfect.
I got a great fucking story for you. So I worked when I was in investigations. I worked with my partner. His name was Carl. Carl had been here like fucking 15, 20 years.
Not the big dummy one.
Yeah, no. This is other. Carl actually has a little bit of hair. Not that one. That one's dumb. But no, Carl was great being a detective. He was very happy and very content. And he was a good detective. He did a great job. So I like fucking with people because it's funny to me.
Right.
So
you were that fucking guy I'm talking about.
Yeah. I probably was. Yeah. I don't know why we're even telling these people, don't listen to me. So Carl, they had a promotion coming up for sergeant, right? So I said, hey, Carl, you should put in for it. And he's like, no. He had no desire to promote at all, like zero. He'd been here like 20 years. We went to the Marines at 30. Like that's when he went in the Marine Corps, and he come out, now he's a cop. So he's like, dude, I'm no fucking desire. So after about a week or so, I started a rumor saying that Carl was putting in for sergeant. So everybody was calling like, oh my God, we're so happy. We're so happy. This is great. This is great. This is great. Well, then the posting closed, and he got a call from the upper administration, said, what the fuck, Carl? Like the sheriff's pissed at you because you said you're going to put in, you didn't. He was like, dude, I fucking never said that. Yeah. But it was great. It was funnier, at least for me, but not for him. But no, that sort of stuff could spiral, and there's people that do that intentionally to negatively impact people.
Yeah. So that's not what I was talking about. Yours was to one person.
Yeah. Fuck that guy.
And not, yeah, exactly. But what I was speaking of was, they did it to the other group to kind of dissuade the other group of candidates to either not put in or to get their hopes down about putting in. So the intent of it going in was a little bit different. And that's what was toxic about it. Like I've seen it happen over and over again. I'm like, come on, man. Like, what are you in high school?
Dude, how fucking shitty is that? You know what I mean?
Right. Like, getting a hold of somebody's email and why it's open and sending the sheriff thing. That's funny.
Yeah.
Especially if it doesn't have any negative impact. But
no, it's meant to enjoy it. But when you're doing something, I've heard this phrase one time, and it made a lot of sense to me. Was it a mistake of the head or a mistake of the heart? Mm-hmm. Like, was it a dumb idea to probably do that to Carl? Yeah, but my heart wasn't in the way to fuck him. You know what I mean? It wasn't to really negatively impact his career. It was like just to bust his balls a little bit, Mm-hmm. But there's people that do that intentionally. They're just some fucking mean-hearted, selfish people. I've seen people step on and over everybody they can just to better themselves, And I think that everybody in every industry has seen that person that'll fuck you over just because, they don't really have a reason, just because they're able to, And I don't think that those people belong in a type of service where honesty and integrity and in being a stand-up and being a model. Like I can give you fucking 30 people I've met that we used to work with that have no reason doing this job. They don't, in my opinion, but
especially the position they're in.
Oh yeah, for sure.
What's crazy is, they get the lip service to their face, so they think it's all honky dory.
Oh, it's the fucking paper hand jobs, what I call. You know what I mean? Like, look how qualified I am, but you're a fucking shitty person.
Right. Like you're dealing with a bunch of people who are skeptics anyways. Mm-hmm. Like they see through that shit. And if you don't think so, you're a fucking idiot.
Yeah. I just, with everything going on externally, why would we want to create more turmoil internally?
Exactly. Well, I think that the internal stuff, at least in the wave that I was in, was different because the external pressure wasn't there when I started.
Yeah.
So internal was there, and that was all you had. It was kind of like ragging on people and whatever, paying your dues, getting into your seniority stuff. But then the external stuff started happening, with Ferguson, with whatever event you want to place on it, and the internal stuff kept going. So now you're getting it from both ends.
Yeah. And not to get too far off topic from toxicity today, but there was an article in the paper today, actually, they're saying how the lack of support and constant negative media attention, they believe, is contributing directly to the suicide rate of law enforcement, specifically cops, So then we're not going to get into that today, but that's what I mean. So there is never
No, they
a
go
reason
hand
for
in hand.
suicide. You know what I
I
mean?
posted that yesterday, actually. That was Chicago, actually.
Yep, that's where it was.
So that's a real issue, I'm sure they deal with internal stuff too, but the external stuff that those guys are dealing with right now is out of control.
I wouldn't do it.
There's no way.
No, I didn't. To me, I'm glad I'm done. There's parts of the job that is there parts I miss? Not really. I'll be honest with you.
Training.
What's that?
Training.
Yeah, no, I do. There's stuff like that. But as far as like working the calls and dealing with the public, no offense, man. I fucking hate you guys out in the public, man. I've 17 years of dealing with you and holding your hand and teaching you how to be a parent or teaching you how to be an adult. I don't want to do that shit anymore.
No, the newness and the fun wears off for sure.
No, it does. For me, it did specifically, And I think that's why it's important that you keep that positivity. And I don't mean like you got to be, don't be Eeyore. But
You don't need a bunch of you go bros either.
Yeah,
you know?
no.
Like, you suck, but keep going. You're great. You know,
Yeah.
like you need people to, hold you accountable.
Yeah. I mean, you don't have to be like, like Eeyore, just, but at the same time, you don't have to be like me. You know what I mean? Like you don't have to be all the way jacked up like I am all the time. But like I said, when the media is tearing you down. Any decision you do, we were talking about a video earlier today, and it's like, no matter what you do, people are going to pick apart every decision, everything you make, everything. And it is just growing like a cancer. It's spreading in every industry, no matter what you do. It's just, okay, question for you. If I got pulled over on the way home and I got a DUI, what do you think the headline would say?
Ex-cop.
Yeah, exactly.
It could be 20 years from now. It's still ex-cop arrest.
Right. And that's what sells. That's what I'm saying. So like you're being vilified in every turn for trying to do the right thing. And unless you've walked a mile in those shoes, it's really hard. But at the end of the day, nobody has your back. Like the administration will throw you to the wolves, like we saw over in Osceola County with
Yeah, if they don't like it the way it looks or anything else, most times, I should say. Because there are still, some administrators with a backbone that actually will support their people if they did the right thing.
No, this is true. But I think also is personal accountability, because you control your actions. What happens if you are that negative person? You know what I mean? What do you do when you are that negative person? How do you feel? How do you deal with that? I think having some self-actualization, and I always use the phrase that, God gave you 2 ears and one mouth. You should listen twice as much as you talk. So in that instance, maybe you should start listening to people, because if 25 people tell you you're a fucking asshole, or 25 people wrong, are you an asshole? Like, what's up? Like, what's causing this? Is this your nature, or is there something underlying?
Yeah. And I told this to a lot of people before, especially when I was repping them as a union rep and they were going in for discipline and stuff. I'm like, it's not about going in there and necessarily falling on the sword, but when's the last time you pulled somebody over in a traffic stop and immediately they're popping off the mouth? You think they're going to get a break? No. Go in there with a cool head, control the controls, which is you. Mm-hmm. Not saying go bow down or anything, but you definitely need to keep that in check.
No, if I've met people that are always angry. They've been angry since they were born. You know what I mean? No matter what, they're always going to be angry. But if you had somebody that wasn't and now is, or you are that person, you were used to be here, but now you're here, what's causing that? That's why understanding what toxicity and where it can come from. It could come from just working night shift. It just fucking wears on you, or you just had a baby, or you're getting a divorce, or you're getting married, or, you know, you're fucking selling a house, or you could literally have any sort of variable that has changed. But understanding how you are negatively impacting others requires a little introspection. And I don't know that just because you're able to look inwards, that most people are able to admit that they're wrong. You know, like I love my wife to death, I do. But like if I say something to her, like I'd say, hey, I don't like when you said this, it made me feel like shit. It's always like, well, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, no, you're not hearing what I'm
defensive.
It is. Instead of saying, this is I understand how it made you feel. Like that's not the response. It's always like an argumentative. And I think that's what people will get when they become that toxic person. They don't want to let that information in. And regardless of what's causing it, you have to have the ability to take a step back and really do some self-actualization about what is causing this change, or why are you the way you are?
Yeah, we're not talking about people that are having a bad day or a bad week or a bad season. This is more that everybody knows who we're talking about, that salty bitch, you know?
Yeah.
Just like there's nothing that you could hand a guy, and I've said this before to this person's face, I could hand you $1 million, no strings attached, and you'd find a way to bitch about it.
Oh, so you hit him in the head with a gold brick. They're going to say you should have been, you know, crusted in platinum.
Right.
Just fucking unhappy people.
Couldn't make them happy.
Listen, I saw one of the snippets I keep on my phone because I watch all the time is Joe Rogan. He talks about He said, get those fucking people away from me. That's what negativity. I don't want no negative. Get your negative shit away from me. I don't want to hear you whining. I don't want to hear you crying. I don't want any negativity in my life. Nothing but positive. And to believe it or not, that's one of the things I told you was why I don't like social media. I don't like negativity. I don't like the energy that it takes me to worry about or think about a response. If I'm wasting time, then I'm not bettering myself, and I'm always trying to think of a way to be better, you know. But as far as toxicity goes, I think there's a difference between disagreeing with somebody, disagreeing with your job, or disagreeing with do you disagree with the mission?
Values, yeah.
Do you understand the values? The values is a good word. Because if you disagree with the values, you're never going to be out of a toxic environment. You know, like I can have a boss I don't like, or I can have a partner I don't like, or I could have some guy working for me that I don't like.
But at the core
of what I'm doing, I don't agree with the direction. It's going to tear you down. And understanding that can be what the problem is when it's time to start reassessing, you know, again, reassessing your surroundings, reassessing where you are in life and where you want to go, because whatever you're in, police, fire, EMS, teachers, nurses, I don't care if you're an engineer. If you're unhappy, stop doing it. Find something that makes you happy, because if what you're doing is turning you into a toxic person, that inevitably will carry over from work to home or home to work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the values of yourself and the values of where you work and who you work for change over time. I've noticed.
Oh, for sure.
You know, like
you mature, you grow, you learn,
or you get new jobs, or it evolves, things like that. So if you can't evolve with that, it's just not in your gut to do it. Stop chasing that dream you set out for, because that dream became a nightmare.
Yeah, I think internal toxic decisions or internal toxicity turns into bad decisions. Like I think you'll find a lot more risky behavior with people that are normally not risky. Say you're on a traffic stop, searching a car by yourself. You know what I mean? Like that is a fucking giant no-no in my book. Like some industries you have to do it, you're by yourself. But where I worked at, there's never a reason for you to search a car by yourself, ever. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Or you start having some other risky behavior. Maybe it's not even at work or at home. Like you start drinking more, or now you're drinking and driving, or infidelity or whatever. All of these things are toxic to your current life, and they're going to lead to a bad decision. I mean, we're all just one decision away from being the fucking guy on the corner begging for change. It's just how tragic is that decision in our lives, And I think that's why understanding, just because you're unhappy, that could lead to toxicity, which could lead to bad decisions, which could, completely alter the trajectory of your life where you thought it was going to go.
Yeah, I mean, of the two, I would rather be the guy on the change, begging for change, versus somebody that they named the road after because I made a bad mistake,
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like I don't need a bridge with my name because I got fucking shot under it trying to search a car. Like that never made sense to me. And I think in our line of work, specifically in law enforcement where we used to work, there's a thing called tombstone courage. And for you guys that are not aware what that is, essentially it means that you feel like you're bulletproof. You know what I mean? No matter what you do, that something bad can't happen to you. And there's a lot of videos and stuff, but I think part of the problem is you'll see a lot of leaders in agencies that don't practice what they preach. You'll hear that do as I say, not as I do. I'm like, well, boss, you're chasing a car for just not stopping. You're getting out on foot and approaching a car of a guy that fled. And like you, everything that we get written up for, you're doing. What message does that send? It's,
Exactly.
and I think that's part of the problem is that level of toxicity in individuals in that capacity, I think comes with delusions of grandeur. You know what I mean? Like nothing can happen to me because I'm the chief or okay, well, that fucking bullet doesn't care if you got a, sheriff right before your name or deputy, because it's going to do some damage. And I think that's a problem because that same level of toxicity can be transitioned down through the ranks to people because they see that, it doesn't matter because the boss man does it,
Yeah, and that's the exact same scenario I'm saying. Like, if the values change a little bit, like that is a form of lying.
Oh yeah, lying to yourself.
Well, you're lying to if by the administrator doing that or whoever getting away with that, and then the other person doesn't necessarily get away with that. That is an integrity issue to me. Like, you have these policies. If you're not going to follow them, but you're going to hold everybody else, tooth and nail to them, like, I'm sorry, man. Like, how can you get behind that?
No, and that goes back to the direction that agencies head in. And one of the many variables when I left was I wasn't in line with the way things were heading anymore. Mm-hmm. I couldn't just blindly push their message. There was parts of it I disagreed with, and okay, no problem, but that's what you want. But there's things to me that were morally wrong. Like, right is right and wrong is wrong. So I'm not going to fuck over one of my guys.
My compass isn't changing.
No, just to appease you because somebody complained. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Somebody complained, and all of a sudden now, okay, well, we need to write him up. For fucking what? For doing his job? Like, I understand, like, mistakes happen, and I'm all about it. If you make a mistake, you'll be held accountable. Mm-hmm. But if you did nothing wrong, but they just don't like the way it looks, is it against policy? Is it against training? Is it against the law? No, I ain't writing it up. And that was part of the, the reasons I was having reconsiderations of what I was doing, is because I couldn't do that. That wasn't me as an administrator. I wasn't going to be that guy.
No, you can't. I mean, me personally, I couldn't. Like I said, my compass is not changing. I don't care. People always chase this dream of, man, if I just get that next raise, everything's going to be better. If I just get this next position, my life's going to straighten out. And it's not.
No, well, think about it from not necessarily a personal standpoint, but professional. For me, I thought when I got promoted to different ranks that I would have the authority and the ability and the trust to make decisions. Dude, it couldn't be further from the truth. Everything I did was constantly scrutinized and constantly nitpicked. You had no authority to do anything. You literally just became somebody who approved reports and signed off on time cards. That was your entire profession. And it's like, so you send me to all these schoolings, I take all these classes, I get all this education, I have all this experience, a very wide variety, a very solid base of understanding, and I can't determine whether or not this was a lawful use of force.
Right. And then you see other people with a similar or less rank that seem to have more authority than that or more trust in there. So then you get into that parity thing, like, what the hell? I mean, what's going on here? Yeah, no,
it becomes problematic. It becomes big issues for people because they want to feel valued and empowered. You know what I mean? Let's say you're I don't know shit about loans, but let's say you're the underwriter for a mortgage company. I assume they give them the authority to sign off on loans. That's why it goes to underwriting, right? What happens when you tell the guy, I know you're an underwriter and that's your job, but we want everybody to send it to this one person.
Right.
So nobody else is able to make that decision. Like, what part of that rings with this administration where these administrations where they're like, we just want some uniformity. There's never gonna be. Like, there's no uniform situation. It could be age, years of service, circumstances, everything changes. But I think, unfortunately, painting everything black and white with that broad brush creates that negativity. It creates negativity for supervisors, and then you take that discontent and you keep it with you with everything. Now, anything that comes out becomes, almost like a fight,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, even in like a nursing thing, in a small family practice, you might have everybody on the same page doing exactly everything the same way. You go to a huge metro ER, you're going to have the same scenario played out 10 different ways. and it's acceptable either way.
Yeah, and I think for a lot of people too, that negative feelings, that toxicness adds up because they don't discuss it. They don't bring it up. They don't confront it head on and say, I have an issue with this because of this. There's out of fear of, whether it's, demotion, transfer, whatever, being blackballed but that's my problem with a lot of industries today is that we should be listening to people. We're not. We discredit people right out the gate if they don't agree. Like either you're pushing the fucking, you're pushing it or you're not. Like, well, that's not true. Like maybe somebody just doesn't understand. One of the things when I was really young, when I first started at the fire service, I got pulled into one of the battalion chief's office and he's like, why are you always questioning everything? I was like, I don't understand. He's like, when we ask you something, you say, why? My response was, so I know for next time that this is why you want things done, so I can have everything laid out before you get there, when you get there, and after. I understand the bigger picture. Right. And that's one of the things that's lost on the generation, at least in my opinion, far as 10 years up, 15 years up. They're still living on that do as I say because I said so, which is the tail end of, I think, that era. But you got to think about kids these days. Anything you want is at your fingertips. The world is literally it's in your phone. Anything you want to know, it's limitless information. And we're depriving them of the why, and why they need this information or why this is happening. But it's very important for people to know what the reason is, but constantly hiding behind the shield of, well, it's liability. We're protecting ourselves from liability.
Yeah, needs of the agency.
Yeah, eat a dick. Right. What you're doing is you have no real reason, and that's your only fail-safe. It's like, saying, oh, you got written up for conduct unbecoming. The fuck does that mean?
Right. You're like, can you give me another example or define that for me?
Yeah, that's my problem. But being comfortable with bringing something up and being well-received should tell you that you're not in a toxic environment. It should let you know that you're in a comforting environment, not comfort, I don't fucking know, an environment that appreciates you or values you. So if you're feeling unhappy and this is well received, your concerns, and they're actually listening to them, I think that should send a message to you that maybe it's you, maybe it's not them.
Yeah, I see with, obviously with this great resignation thing, I see it continuing that way in the sense that old adage of, hey, tote the line and shut the fuck up, isn't going to work anymore.
No. No. And I understand there's a time and a place. Mm-hmm. Like, when you're on scene or in the middle of a code, or if you're on, now's the time to take orders. We can talk about it later. Like, take orders and execute your operation. That's what you do now. But depriving people the ability to express themselves, it removes that freedom. It's almost like, minimizing their freedom and saying your whatever doesn't matter. And I think that it's always important to know that you're entitled to your own feelings, but you're not entitled to your own facts.
Yeah. And I see this all the time, or did. The guys on the ground, like, they're the ones dealing with that policy implementation of how it's actually used. Mm-hmm. So they're the ones who have that insight of, hey, is this working or not working?
Yeah, what's effective and what's not. Mm-hmm. And I think one thing that we saw firsthand when our new sheriff got sworn in, he brought in, de-escalation, which to me was a rebranding of an old term. It's nothing new. It's just a touchy term. It's a term that is being used and thrown around. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's better off to give it a few minutes and diffuse. It's not saying that you shouldn't take decisive action when you need to do it. So I thought. But my opinion is de-escalation is no different than anything else you were taught before. Ask, tell, make. That's de-escalation. That's the exact same thing. I asked you to do it. You said no. All right, motherfucker, I'm going to tell you to do it. You said no. All right, now I'm going to make you do it. That's de-escalation.
Mm-hmm. Well, the same thing with concealment cover. Mm-hmm. Same exact thing.
Yeah, and using time and distance, and just trying to use your brain a little bit. Just because you can do something doesn't mean you should. But I think that's part of the problem is that these environments from the top down, they get isolated. I still use it. We were 5 planets revolving around the Earth of this, the moons revolving around the planet of the sheriff's office. Nobody did stuff unilaterally. And a lot of the information was filtered going up or filtered coming down. And it just didn't seem like
half the time you're on the dark side of it.
Yeah. You don't know what's going on, but it's really hard for people to work in that environment. And when you try to appreciate what you've done, you always have somebody that's negative bringing you down. You know what I mean? Like somebody that's bashing you. And that's why I'm be happy for you, the things that you're able to do, and be happy for others, but don't be more emphatic when someone else fails. Because if you're spending more energy on someone else's failure than your success, you're probably the problem.
Yeah, for sure. I always, thrived on that negative aspect of it, the people, the doubters, the you can't do it, whatever. That made me want to do it even more and put more effort into it.
No, for sure. Yeah.
Flip it back. But yeah, man, I mean, just moral of the story is stop being a dick,
Yeah, and unnecessarily, but is jumping on what you were saying about how that motivated you. I don't have that. Like, to me, I'm probably more type B, maybe. I don't know.
Well, a lot of people just shut down.
Yeah.
That's what I was going back to with like they're pushing an agenda or whatever to affect that person by creating a rumor about a position or whatever. Just take the wind out of your sails, just to be a dick.
Yeah. It's tough, man. But I think, again, assessing everything as a whole and seeing, is it the messaging? Is it the mission? Is it the values you disagree with? If it is, you should probably be looking for an exit. Is it that boss that you don't agree with? Then maybe you should try to find a new boss. Or is it you? And I think one thing, don't be afraid to leave. Doesn't mean you have to leave that job or that agency or that maybe just to change the scenery, bring some fresh wind into your sails. And a lot of people get so stuck with, well, this schedule works out well for me and my wife and my kids, and this, you'll figure it out. And I think that's what a lot of people forget. You figured it out when you started in this new position. Everything's constantly evolving and changing. So you can't let it change without you.
Yeah, I think to kind of summarize and close out, it could be whatever you're dealing with. It could be a season. It could be a week. If you're feeling anxious about it, take some time off, reevaluate. If it looks like it's going to be, a forever type of thing, evaluate what you want to do with your life at that point.
Yeah, because you know what? When I was little and I said I wanted to be a cop, I didn't want to be a cop because I wanted to be miserable. I wanted to be a cop because I thought it looked fun. When the fun was gone, I'm like, I don't want to do this shit anymore. You have to constantly reevaluate. I think it's a good point that you have to figure out what's next.
Yeah, just slow things down sometimes. And I always tell people, hey, if something's jacked up or whatever, like confront it head on and take some time off. Like if you come back and you're still in orbit about it and it just doesn't line up, then you need to look at something else.
Yeah, plan your exit. Like we talked about in another episode previously, talk about your exit strategy and understanding where you're going.
Yeah, and that might not be put in your 2 weeks that day. It could be getting the education or experience or whatever you need for that new chapter in your life.
Yeah, I mean, use that to your advantage. If they give you tuition reimbursement, all right, well, I'm going to milk this cow. I'm going to get some my college degree done, then I'm going to go off and do accounting or whatever the bullshit you want to do. But wrapping up as far as toxicity goes today, I do want to say that, you have to be happy. You have to find happiness in life. You have to find happiness in your professional life and your personal life. So if you're unhappy, find a way to be happy, and don't let your job, regardless of what you work in, make you unhappy. You might be pissed off for a time or two, but if it's making you an unhappy person, time to reevaluate and maybe look for something else. But on the way out, I do want to say again, thank you to Blue Line Beer Company. Nice fucking attire they sent us. Nice looking shirt, man. Good beer too, by the way. Neither here nor there, but give them a call, send them a text, send them a jingle, buy some beer from them, tell them we sent you guys. We do want to appreciate you guys for listening today. For Hear It Out Podcast, I'm Nick.
Stay safe.
Y'all be good.
Thanks for listening to the Heroed Out podcast. For the latest news and episodes, visit us at heroedout.com or on social media. Stay safe out there, heroes.